The story begins with Seiki Kenta, the notorious class bully. "Hey, trash," he mocks at Hidaka Masamune, instructing him to buy some juice. Seiki's psychic Kita also demands a drink. Despite the demeaning request, Hidaka smiles and suggests seltzer. As he receives coins for the purchase, he reflects on how he's become the designated errand boy at school, burdened with the personality of a slave due to an unfortunate curse. His world is eternally cast in shades of gray, a lifeless backdrop to his everyday life. Unexpectedly, a girl named Kawachi disrupts them, confronting the bullies and questioning their lack of shame. She scolds them for behaving like schoolyard bullies in high school. Despite her reprimand, Seiki feigns ignorance and insists there's nothing wrong with having Hidaki buy juice for them. He looks at Hidaki and asks, "After all, we're friends, aren't we?" It's obviously nonsense, but the girl inquires if it's true. While looking down, Hidaka confirms so and says that they're not doing anything wrong, but she isn't convinced and asks him if he's actually okay with this situation. The boy gives a blank stare, and a moment later, he brushes off her question and leaves the classroom to buy the drinks. He then contemplates about the 4 types of people who contribute to the bullying process. These are the bystanders, supporters, bullies, and victims. Masamune believes everyone has a role in bullying wherever it happens, and in reality, everyone likes to believe that they're not involved. He opens the door to the school rooftop, and there his thoughts lead him to the guardrails, where he tells himself he's broken. He corrects himself, stating that he isn't the one broken, it's the world that requires fixing. And just then, as he looks over the city skyline from the rooftop edge, he lets himself fall forward and bids goodbye to everyone. While descending rapidly, he clarifies that he doesn't necessarily want to die. He just doesn't want to live anymore. His subtle reasoning makes sense to him, but he's sure the others wouldn't know the difference. He keeps his eyes closed as he approaches the ground, and the next moment, a white emptiness greets him in his death. However, he suddenly opens his eyes and finds himself in another world. Perplexed, he discovers himself alive, greeted by a crowd, with a royal throne before his eyes. The old king announces, "Welcome, heroes, you have arrived at last." And Masamune immediately wonders why he called them heroes. The man continues speaking, introducing himself as King Johannes Greyberg, the patriarch of the country of Greyberg. Just then, Hidaki realizes that his classmates are also in the throne room, and unsurprisingly, even in this new world, Seiki locks eyes with him with a fierce glare. Hidaka averts his gaze and pays attention to King Greyberg, who details the prolonged war against magical entities in his kingdom. Desperate for a resolution, they resorted to hero summoning. The king emphasizes that the summoned heroes would possess formidable statuses and skills. However, before he can complete his explanation, an infuriated Seiki loudly interrupts the elderly man. Seiki demands clarification from him, asserting that their actions amount to kidnapping. At that moment, a mysterious flying object crashes in front of Seiki. King Greyberg, extending his hand, reveals the existence of magic in their world. Despite apologizing for the surprise, he explains that demonstrating magic is the quickest way to help Seiki comprehend the situation. The students, including Hidaka, are shocked at the sudden display of magic. However, Seiki is visibly angered. Another student, Achijo Yukimura, intervenes, advising him not to provoke the king and suggesting they listen to what the king has to say, as they are unaware of the circumstances. Some girls agree with Yukimura, prompting Seiki to reluctantly comply and calm down. King Greyberg reassures them that they have no intention of killing them, emphasizing the effort put into summoning the heroes. However, Seiki argues that they are just high school students. The king goes on to disclose that they have received extraordinary powers and occupations, highlighting that those with the hero occupation are especially gifted. Princess Aries Greyberg adds that if they utter the word status, they can witness the truth themselves. Seiki does as he's told, and upon the appearance of this status window, the princess exclaims in surprise. She immediately informs the king that the boy is a sage, the top class of the knights. There's even greater news, though. Princess announces that she has identified a hero in Yukimura. She is awestruck by his impressive status, while Hidaki, observing the surreal situation, finds it difficult to comprehend. He feels a sense of injustice that his happy classmates are now destined for even more extraordinary lives. However, he wonders if fortune has also smiled upon him. Curious and hopeful, he checks his own status window, only to discover that he has been assigned the role of a healer. Is this my so-called blessing? He questions in disbelief. Despite the initial shock, he decides not to lose hope. Seeking clarification about the healer class, he poses a question to the princess. At the mention of the term healer, her rejoicing expression transforms into one of seriousness. She explains that healers are a recovery occupation and reveals that they are the weakest. The information sends him into a state of crisis, and just then, Seiki approaches him and rubs salt on his burning wound by mocking him for being the weakest. Kawasha calls him out, but he doubles down and seriously suggests they probably don't need him here. Yukimura butts in and tells Seiki that he's being way too rude to Hidaki, but the bully retorts and asks if he has anything to say. Just then, the old man asks Hidaki about his status being the only one saying, "Reincarnated." The question grabs the attention of the other students and Princess Aries as the boy struggles to answer. Nervously, he reveals that he jumped from the school rooftop, which satisfies the old man's curiosity. Princess Aries then calls everyone's attention to continue her explanations, which takes Masamune aback due to the lackluster and dismissive reaction to what he had just revealed. The princess informs everyone they'd be enrolled in school to focus on training power to fight magical entities. They will first transport the students to their dormitories using a magic circle in the throne room. Seiki strides alongside the group toward the circle, casting a disdainful remark at Masamune as he passes by. At that moment, Hidaki reflects on his decision to end his life by jumping off the roof, only to find himself trapped in a seemingly unending cycle. Even in this new world, Seiki's cruelty persists, pushing Hidaki to his breaking point. He suddenly asks, much to the bully's surprise, "Is it really that much fun?" Baffled, Seiki seizes him, issuing threats, but Masamune dismisses the intimidation, expressing his repulsion. In a bold declaration, he announces his refusal to accompany the class any further. Princess Aries responds to his decision, acknowledging that she had already planned to transport him to a distinct location from the rest upon discovering his healer occupation. She adds that the destination will be random, maintaining a blank expression. She explains that it's part of a security system to ensure they can always receive assistance. Misinterpreting her, Hidaka expresses gratitude for the security, but Princess Aries clarifies with a cold demeanor. She asserts that the system is exclusively for the citizens of their kingdom, a potent magical tool crafted to save their lives. In a fit of anger, she expresses her frustration, grumbling about the summoning of a weak healer instead of a powerful being. She questions how they can explain this to the people relying on them for safety. Masamune, upon hearing this, turns ice cold. Seiki, seizing the opportunity, pats him on the back and whispers that he is truly trash. The tension escalates as the princess declares him guilty of wasting their effort and hope, branding it a crime. She then activates a magic circle. She coldly pronounces that he must now pay for his crimes with his life, pushing Masamune's anxiety to its breaking point. Frustrated by a lifetime of blame and mistreatment, he questions why he is always the target. He has always been blamed and picked on for various reasons, and he wonders why it's always him. Hidaka, consumed by rage and despair, unleashes a ferocious declaration, shouting at all of them, "I'll destroy you. This country, I'll turn it all to ash." He calls out everyone in the room, and with a burning heart for revenge, he swears to kill them all. But at the last moment, he disappears in a bright light as the magic circle teleports him away. Sometime later, he walks along a dark, narrow cave and wonders how long he has been traveling. He also has no clue where he is, so he pulls up his status window to get his directions. Upon viewing his stats, he recalls that he's the weakest hero as the healer, but at the corner of his eye, he notices an odd-level status that indicates the level of his otherworld syndrome. He flashes a cold smile upon seeing it, unaffected by the discovery of the unknown sickness. After some time navigating the dark maze, he stumbles upon a mysterious treasure box and contemplates whether it might be a mimic, a type of transforming monster. Concluding that this is unlikely, he opens the box only to find it empty. As he checks other boxes, a surprise awaits him, a small bottle in one of the treasure chests. Suspicious, he wonders if it could be poison. Suddenly, a voice resonates through the room, urging him to drink the contents of the bottle. Bewildered, Masamune turns around, asking if anyone else is present, yet he finds himself alone. The mysterious voice persists, urging him to consume the liquid for more power, emphasizing that he should drink every last drop. He contemplates whether he's imagining things but is enticed by the prospect of gaining strength, especially to fulfill his revenge. Fueled by the desire for a new life and the power potential, he decides to take the gamble and drinks the mysterious liquid from the bottle. Shock overtakes him as he consumes the fluid, and in the next moment, the bottle slips from his grasp, shattering into pieces on the ground. Meanwhile, in the students' dormitory, Seiki engages in a conversation about Princess Aries with Kita. Kawachi, however, warns him about a dangerous aura surrounding her, and Yukimura cautions him to be careful, emphasizing that once someone falls deep, there's no saving them, similar to Hidaka's situation. The girl mentions how they both went around bullying Hidaka, but Seiki dismisses it, believing there's no use pressuring them as he must be dead by now. While back in the cave, some time has passed, and Hidaka finds himself lying on the ground, initially unmoving. Upon awakening, he contemplates whether he fainted and assesses his physical condition. Despite earlier injuries, he doesn't feel any different. Curious, Masamune examines his surroundings, questioning if his vision has improved, but he can't discern any immediate changes. Determined to explore further, he rises to his feet and notices a chest nearby. Without expecting anything extraordinary, he decides to open it. Unfortunately, the box turns out to be a mimic in disguise, and before he can react, the monster attacks, drawing first blood. He screams in pain, clutching his bloody forearm. With no time to waste, as the mimic prepares for another attack, Masamune senses the danger and quickly runs away. After all, a person can surely outrun a box, right? Surprisingly, the monster doesn't pursue him and transforms back into a harmless-looking treasure chest. Having found a safe place for himself, he heals his wounds while lamenting about his unfortunate luck. He realizes that all he can do is heal himself, which he thinks definitely makes him the weakest class. He wonders if he's supposed to beat the monster with his lackluster skills. But just then, he notices a new unique skill in his status window named Mischievous Reversal, which he obtained from the bottle earlier, which was actually the god of revenge's secret medicine. He reads about the skill's effects but decides to focus on healing first. However, a notification suddenly pops up and informs him that his Mischievous Reversal skill has been activated, which has, in effect, reversed the magic technique Heal into the new technique Waves of Erosion. This new skill allows the user to take the life force of anything it touches. Upon learning this, he wonders if he could use it to beat the mimic in the treasure chest room. He decides to approach the chest cautiously, opting not to trigger the monster by opening it. Despite his mirrors, he is fueled by the desire for revenge against the creature that harmed his left hand. "I beg you, just die," Masamune mutters, activating Waves of Erosion. Magic energy shoots from his hands, making contact with the monster. Instantly, a portion of the mimic's body decays. Without warning, the box erupts into an explosion. The power of the Mischievous Reversal skill amazes him, and with the monster defeated, he celebrates his victory. At that moment, a notification surprises him again and informs him that the goddess Divine Protection has given him a chance to choose his rewards for winning. He ponders over 3 options, which are all interesting to him. After careful consideration, he opts for the precious chest skill, providing him with access to an infinite storage space, a convenient and practical choice. Following the destruction of the level 500 mimic, a notification reveals that he has gained enough experience to level up. The system floods him with multiple notifications and beeps to announce the level up. Not only have his overall levels increased, but even his techniques, such as the heal skill, have reached their maximum level. Additionally, a new skill named Healing Waves has been acquired and promptly enhanced to its maximum level, along with the acquisition of 2 more powerful skills. Observing his status window, Hidaka is puzzled by the rapid increase in his stats. He lacks knowledge about the standards of this new world, so he remains uncertain if his current level of strength is considered formidable. Concerns also linger about the power levels of his classmates, fearing that they might have surpassed him in strength. However, he sets aside his worries and focuses on moving forward in his solo journey. He heads deeper into the maze and eventually stumbles upon a massive, ominous door. He tries to push it open, but to no avail, and after a quick thought, he wisely decides to use waves of erosion on the door. The magical skill effortlessly creates a hole, revealing a room with a floating magic staff at its center. Masamune's excitement surges, akin to playing one of his fantasy games. Eager to claim his first loot, he hurries towards it. However, his elation is interrupted by a sudden shake in the room, prompting him to question the cause. Just as he wonders, something crashes through the ceiling and lands on the ground. The whole room begins to shake. Masamune notices a figure that is guarding the staff, showing no hesitation in its intent to kill him. The knight swings its massive sword, but Masamune manages to dodge just in time. Despite the upgrade in his physical resistance, he is not curious about the potential consequences of a direct hit and decides to enhance his defense using a skill, preparing for another attack from the Guardian. Surprisingly, the knight's sword gets stuck in the ground, providing Masamune with an opportunity to strike. Seizing the moment, he activates waves of erosion, tearing off the Guardian's right leg. Filled with overconfidence, he believes his opponent to be easier than expected. However, this optimism is short-lived, as the Guardian delivers a powerful counterattack that sends him crashing into a hard wall, causing him to vomit blood. Unfortunately, the enemy is still standing and remains determined to harm him. If not for his enhanced defense, Hidaka would have died on the spot earlier, so he heals himself and thinks about what to do. He decides to give it his best shot this time, so he once again activates waves of erosion. A bigger magic blast shoots out from him, and upon contact, the attack wipes out half of the Guardian's body. It's over, he confidently declares as the knight explodes into pieces. After a while, he receives a new skill called Mimic's Life. The system informs him that he just defeated a high-level mimic, and he wonders why his level is so high. But his magic skills are only level 5. He remembers the princess calling him the weakest, but he brushes off the thought and grabs the floating magic staff nearby. The system informs him that he has acquired a magic tool called the Wrath of Saints, which contains intermediate holy magic of the holy light element. Hidaka is unsure of whatever that means, but he's certain it will be useful someday. At the Ares Academy maneuvering area number 1, Yukimura apologizes to the teacher, Philip Battlers, as his magical circle explodes. Philip advises him to learn to control magic without relying on a circle, emphasizing the importance of mastering skills to defeat demons. Seiki and Kita only observe the training as the teacher has told them that their magical power is not enough, while Yukimura is still training despite having no strength left. They ponder that their titles as heroes are merely decorations, highlighting the distinction between having the title and truly embodying the essence of a hero. While Hidaka is still exploring the maze, but now he also finds himself drinking booze for the first time. He has also stumbled upon a food pantry, alleviating his concerns about food supplies. However, a mysterious door captures his attention, and after a moment of impulsive decision-making, he ventures into the room. Suddenly, a man seated on a throne speaks, acknowledging an adventurer's arrival. Surprisingly, Hidaka discovers himself in the boss room, greeted by a mysterious man who extends a warm welcome. Masamune, puzzled by the distinctiveness of the place compared to others he's explored, overhears the man asking his pet monster about the last time he encountered an adventurer. Learning that it's been 150 years, though I found it somewhat incredulous. Standing tall, Sean rises and proudly proclaims himself as the King of Snakes. As he unsheathes his sword, he declares the commencement of their imminent battle, brimming with excitement. Before Masamune can muster a response, King Sean swiftly thrusts his sword into the boy's belly. A torrent of pain courses through his body, and amid his agony, Sean wears a maniacal smile, reveling in the thrill of a deadly battle. Yet, as Masamune gasps for breath, his hands clutching his wounded stomach, King Sean expresses disappointment in the declining quality of adventurers. Strangely, he hears Hidaka utter a healing spell and wonders if he might be a priest. Sean's pet Zuri clarifies that he's a healer, and at this point, he wonders how a healer could have been able to come to this place alone. The flying pet then adds that the boy's skills are a bit weird, but before the king can learn anything about it, Hidaka comes in clutch with his holy light attack, which kills Zuri. A bright explosion fills the room, and right after, the system asks Masamune to choose a reward, but just then, an angry king prepares a powerful attack. Thinking swiftly, Masamune casts waves of erosion at the king, catching him off guard with the potent magic. As the magical energy courses through the air, he anxiously wonders if his attack had any effect. To his astonishment, King Sean reappears, demanding an explanation for the peculiar magic. However, he soon notices that his sword has been partially destroyed by the attack. Hidaka, seizing the opportunity, confronts him about his unexpected reaction. His momentary relief shatters as the king swiftly launches another attack, inflicting a significant wound on his body. He falls helpless on the ground and endures the taunts and warnings from King Sean, who asserts that escape from the room is an impossible feat. While lying injured, he attempts to heal himself, recognizing the immense speed of the old man, making it challenging for him to see the unfolding events. King Sean, frustrated by Masamune's evasive responses, interrogates him about the magic that obliterated his monster, suspecting it might have come from the boy's magic staff. However, the absence of supporting items on the staff raises doubts in the king's mind. Losing patience, he swings his sword once more, inflicting excruciating pain on Hidaka, who maintains his claim of being just a healer. The old man declares, "In that case, I will slash you until you say the truth." But Hidaka, not wanting to back down, insists that he has already told him everything. In his angry rampage, King strikes the defenseless boy multiple times, leaving him no chance to heal himself completely. The old man then insists again that he must be hiding something else since it's impossible for a healer to use offensive magic. He sticks to this script and maintains his claim of being a healer without divulging his name. Frustrated by Hidaka's lack of cooperation, King Sean calls him out for not revealing his name while continuously repeating his occupation. In response, the boy introduces himself as Nito, drawing inspiration from a previous encounter with Seiki, who likened the title to the healer occupation. He adopts the name with the determination to make it famous and seek revenge on everyone. However, King Sean hears Nit instead of Neat, and despite Masamune's attempts to correct him, it proves futile. Frustrated, the king declares his boredom with the situation. The statement confuses Masamune, and without any notice, multiple slashes suddenly appear on his body, causing blood to spurt out all at once. He falls to his knees, and King Sean declares that it's over for him. He wonders if he's really going to die like this. However, at that moment, Seiki's face appears in his mind, sparking a second wave of determination fueled by anger and a desire for revenge. He thinks, "I still haven't done anything yet." At the last second, just before the king's sword could strike him down, Masamune activates waves of erosion. The magic, being essentially unavoidable at point-blank range, leaves King Sean defeated on the ground, surprised by the boy's ability to still wield magic despite his poor condition. The king admits that he has become weaker after 150 years, since his last fight with an adventurer. He then unexpectedly gives advice and tells Hidaka to hide his identity from now on. He reveals that he used to be widely known across the kingdom in the old days, since he was the mighty king of snakes. He then points out Masamune's unusually powerful and strange magic despite his healer occupation and warns him that he will become the target of everyone if people learn about it. According to the old man, the best choice for him is to hide his identity and pretend to be weak, especially since their world rejects idiots. The advice surprises Masamune, and after a moment he asks the king if he has ever heard about a certain god of revenge. In a moment of clarity, an old memory of a former friend flashes through the king's eyes, and with a smile, he suddenly remarks that he now understands. He then laughs and explains that it's been a long time since he heard that name. Masamune excitedly asks if he knows anything, but the king only reveals that it was the code name of an adventurer who had a curse and advises him to travel to other lands to one day find its meaning. The dying king finds the situation interesting, and as his final words, he requests the boy to reveal his identity. Masamune tells the old man his full name, and the next moment he passes away. A notification immediately pops up and prompts him to choose a reward for defeating the King of Snakes. As if on cue, the king's sword suddenly appears above the old man. Masamune grabs the so-called serpent sword and wonders if a healer like him could use it, but he sets aside his apprehensions and fully accepts the reward from King Sean. A skill window that informs him that he has received a new skill from killing the king's pet monster, and on top of that, he has also acquired the old man's unique speed skill called Flash. With a new set of skills and a strong brand new weapon at hand, he begins climbing the stairs, hoping the passage will lead him outside. He reminds himself to keep pushing forward no matter how long it takes to achieve his goal, to kill all those who mocked him and brought him down.
After some time, Masamune is still going up the never-ending stairs. He keeps himself busy, though, by drinking alcohol, getting drunk, and then using magic to heal himself over and over again. He is thinking about where the stairs lead to when all of a sudden he hears a scream behind him. Upon turning to glance behind him, he is faced with a forest of trees. He is confused by the strange event and wants to know what's happening since he was just on the stairs. The thought that comes to his mind is, did I get teleported? Masamune knows what it's like to be teleported and doesn't want to remember what he touched on the stairs. He doesn't care what happened because he is finally out of the strange maze. Having been freed, he is now ready to begin his adventure in this new world. A loud voice calling out someone stops him in the middle of his bold adventure announcement. He turns around and sees 3 adventurers arguing as they walk through the forest. The others in the group are curious about him, but Masamune isn't sure if the adventurers are human. The leader of the 3, Jeek, moves quickly forward with a sword and tells them to kill the adventurer right away because he may have heard them talking. The swordsman has already drawn his sword and is ready to attack, but Masamune doesn't defend himself. Instead, he tries very hard to calm Jeek down and negotiate peacefully. Unfortunately, the swordsman shows no interest in peace talks as he swiftly advances and swings his sword up close. Witnessing the forthcoming attack, he realizes that he's in a dangerous situation. The last thing he does is use his speed skill to avoid the sword and sneak up behind the female adventurer named Eliza to take her hostage. Things suddenly change in his favor. He takes charge and tells the swordsman not to move. Jeek is confused about how he got there. Masamune tells Jeek and the other adventurer named Alfred that they must put down their swords first, which makes Jeek very angry. Then Eliza tells the swordsman they've lost because he got so close and she didn't sense anything. The fight has turned around in a flash. Jeek reluctantly does what Masamune asks and puts down his sword. As he wants Eliza to be freed, he decides to be safe and wonders if the swordsman has set a trap. A promise from Jeek that he won't fight him anymore, and Masamune finally lets go of the adventurer after getting him to promise. Masamune puts his sword away and says goodbye, and Eliza thanks her. That fight didn't last long and only involved one person. But Jeek may have other plans since he tells Masamune to wait a while before leaving. He is furious because the adventurers were just trying to kill him, which makes sense. However, Jeek introduces himself and stops him to ask for his help. He says, "I want to invite you to come with us," which makes his party members very surprised and confused. Masamune tells him right away that it will be a bother, so he says sorry and tells him to find someone else. But just then, Jeek uses his fireball skill to hit him with several fireballs. He is lucky that he realizes the sudden danger in time to easily avoid each attack. He implores Jeek to halt and questions if he's gone mad, but the swordsman persists in his relentless advance. He employing the flame hammer, a massive fireball begins to take shape above his outstretched hand, steadily growing in size. Jeek then tells Masamune that he's very calm right now. He even says it's okay if he'd rather fight than talk because their conversation ends here. Masamune again thinks of him as crazy, and then he asks the swordsman what he does for a living. He wonders if it's normal to keep your job a secret in this new world. Since Jeek doesn't want to tell him anything. Still, he uses his skill, Eye of Truth, to see the swordsman's stats, and finds out that he is a high-level knight with powerful stats and the ability to use magic. Masamune says he's envious of the knight's magic skills, but Jeek sees that as an insult and tells him not to make fun of him. The swordsman then turns his hand down, letting loose a huge fire attack. While this is going on, Masamune thinks about what his mischievous reversal skill can do. He tested the skill earlier while going up the never-ending stairs, and found a new move called Soul Break that could mess up any skill. He didn't want to use the system until the right time, though, because it didn't tell him about its range or effects. He says it's time to test his skills since he's up against a strong man. Jeek questions, what does he mean? As a response, Masamune raises his hand to use his skill. All of a sudden, the huge flame hammer is gone, like a gust of wind. Jeek's magic circle breaks, which makes him think that he might be up against a monster. It looks like Masamune is reading the swordsman's mind because he points his hand toward him and says, I hope you study well. This could be the end of Jeek, but Eliza steps and grabs Masamune by the arm, and begs him to forgive Jeek because he's a dear friend. She knows what he did was wrong, but she promises to do anything for him as long as he lets her friend go. Masamune thinks he's going too far when he hears the desperate plea for forgiveness. It makes him think of Seiki's bullying, and he vows not to become a bad guy like him. Jeek asks again if he wants to join his party, but he walks away. The knight says that he already knew he wasn't like other people, and that they are looking for strong allies right now. He also tells them that they're part of a bigger group that not just anyone can join. But because he is so strong, it won't be a problem to join them. Masamune is interested in the offer, but he doesn't know what he'll get in return. In trying to convince him, Jeek asserts that he would never have to worry about money, but Masamune says he doesn't really want anything. They wouldn't be able to grant his wish even if there were. Eliza knows they can't get him to join, so she tells Jeek to stop, but he reminds her of the limited time, and they need him for as an ally. However, the swordsman remains resolute in his determination to make him an ally. In pursuit of this goal, he offers Masamune a magical ring that enables communication over great distances, as long as it is infused with mana. He understands the reason for not answering immediately, but requests to think about it. He further tells him the name of their organization, Dragon's Heart. Their purpose is to keep the world peaceful by getting rid of corruption. Masamune thinks about their mission and wonders if the adventurers thought he was someone else. Jeek gives him a hint by stating that a nearby territory had been attacked and no one had survived. He figures out what's going on and accepts the ring. Alfred is surprised as he puts the ring away in his dimensional storage, as it's a rare sight. RMC asks them about their plans ahead, and Jeek answers that they are going to Greyberg to look into the heroes who were called to the country a month ago. What, a month ago? For some reason, he thought that he had only been in the maze for a few days. His thoughts are interrupted when Jeek's questions about his next plans, and he tells the swordsman that he's going to the next town. Eliza tells him that he must be going to Razahausen and that the walk there would take 3 days. Now that everything is clear, Jeek finally asks our protagonist his name. Before answering, he contemplates and decides to hide who he is. He replies, "My name is Nito." After a while, he continues his journey through the forest by himself, and complains that nothing interesting is happening to him. As if on cue, a group of angry wolves shows up in front of him. Some people might see this as a threat to their lives, but Masamune has been waiting for this moment. He's been looking for excitement, and trying out danger in a new world is just what he needs. It's also a great way to make his stay here more fun and interesting. To begin, he uses his appraisal skill to check on the monsters. Oh boy, our hero has never been so let down in his life. The angry wolves are only on level 8. Jeek was only on 48 level, and now this? No matter what, Masamune decides he needs to get rid of them quickly and move on. Just as he's about to attack, someone quickly walks by and kills all the wolves, taking his kills. The adventurer asks. That was risky. Are you hurt somewhere? He thinks that he doesn't need the help, but he replies with an awkward smile. He thanks the adventurer and checks her stats. Sierra Ecarlat, a white king's knight with mighty stats. He expresses gratitude to the woman once again for saving him, but the knight just stares at him, not sure if he's really happy, causing him to flinch. At that very moment, a man in a carriage calls for Sierra. He later says that his name is William Vector and that he is a merchant traveling with his escort named Keith. Sierra is the last person to introduce herself, and Masamune ends the formalities by saying that his name is Nito. Sierra is still staring at him, making him wonder if she's wary of him. After some time, William tells him that they are currently taking goods to Rashausen and that he hired Sierra to be her guard for the trip in exchange for giving her a ride as they know each other. Masamune says he's sorry for coming in and making trouble, but the humble merchant says it's okay because traveling with too many guards isn't a bad thing. William then tells Sierra how impressed he is with how quickly she responded when she felt a presence earlier. The knight blushes at the compliment and says it wasn't a big deal. While this is going on, Masamune asks William what a White King's Knight is. He uses this opportunity to explain that they are the unit that works directly for King Arnold Rashausen. But because they don't show up in public very often, no one is really sure that they exist. That's why William thinks meeting Sierra is a miracle. He agrees with her, while Masamune thinks that he didn't expect to meet a pretty girl with silver hair. The hero of this other world is her. Sierra tells the merchant that he's just as well known as the merchant. William says humbly that his fame is nothing compared to hers, but the knight tells him that everyone in the business knows William. He is a famous merchant in many countries for dealing with rare and valuable items. He thanks Sierra for her nice words and then asks Masamune what he was doing earlier on the road. He responds that he just had the idea of going on an adventure, and William thinks he's probably going to the guild. For a moment, this makes no sense to him, but then he remembers that in another world, guilds are where most people go. So, Masamune states that he is about to go there, and Sierra tells him she'll go with him and asks about his class. Did she just ask me about my class for no reason? What's going on? He is shocked. He recalls King Cheyenne telling him to hide his identity, and Jeek's fear of telling everyone his class. He can't make up a lie that makes sense, so when Sierra asks him again, he surprises her by telling her that he's a healer. Masamune says he will go to the party right away when she asks him. To his surprise, Sierra offers to help him ask around at the guild, where healer-class adventurers have trouble joining groups. She's sure he'll be able to find a group that will take him in though, and she hopes that his success will inspire everyone. He thinks of her as optimistic. She suggests learning to use a sword because he can't use offensive magic. He looks surprised by this because he thought he couldn't use a sword since he's a healer. But the knight says that he can because everyone knows how to use axes, swords, and bows. He recalls that the princess lied when she said that everything is based on class, so he asks Sierra if he can use fireball and lightning magic. Unfortunately, the knight says it would be hard for him to do because healers use different kinds of magic than sorcerers, who use magic to hurt people. This makes Masamune think for a moment. The next second, he asks what would happen if he used the spell Attribute Enhancement, which he already knows how to do. He adds that it's not the same as magic attributes. She tells him that it is a support magic that can only be used on weapons. For them to work, they don't really need a magic formula. While this is being explained, he doesn't seem to understand anything. But Sierra is shocked to see a healer with the Attribute Enhancement spell. He tells Masamune that this is even more reason for him to learn how to use a sword. With excitement, she states, "Let me teach you if that's okay." After a while, they get to Tanya village and get off to take a break. They look over and see a big group of people gathered at a nearby building. They don't know what's going on there. When they approach, the village elder greets them and asks who they are. After explaining, the elder says sorry and tells them that their village can't have any guests because thieves broke in and stole all the women. an angry crowd member yells out loud. Everyone will be back. They're determined to help the other villagers, but Sierra tells them that thieves and bandits don't work the same way. Because they have ties to slave traders, she says it makes sense to act right away. They are all shocked when she declares that they should let her and her group do the mission instead. William tells the village chief not to worry even though the chief is against the idea. He tells Sierra that she can bring Keith with her. The knight then asks the people in the village if anyone knows where the thieves could have gone. At first, there is silence. Then, a kid named Jack speaks up and states that he knows the way because he followed the thieves. He tells them that when he found their camp, he saw his mother and other villagers locked up in cages. The village elder adds all of a sudden that Jack only has his mother left as a family member. This explains why the kid is so brave and determined. The boy remarks, "Save my mom and everyone else." After some time, Jack takes the group to the camp. When they get there, Sierra tells the little guy to go back to the village and wait for them there. Within this time frame, Masamune looks around and ponders. This feels like a game event. Sierra starts to brief him and informs him that she and Keith will take care of the guards and will signal him when they're done. When Sierra sees that he looks confused, she tells him to stay out of the way during the fight. She says that healers aren't good at attacking, so he should focus on supporting them. They think Masamune is only a weak healer, so he agrees to the plan. Oh, I wish they knew how powerful he really is. He's going to stay out of sight for now, since Sierra is already suspicious of him. He will use this chance to witness how strong the White King's knights are. At the village, the elder hopes that they are safe and William tells him to believe in them. Sierra is a white knight indeed. At the thieves' hideout, the mission to save the boy begins as the young White King's knight stabs and kills a guard who wasn't expecting it. A short time later, Sierra has taken care of all the guards and the healer is amazed by how well she did. But the knight says it's not a big deal. Soon, the villagers are set free, and she tells the people to quietly follow them back to the village. Then she tells Masamune that it was lucky that most of the thieves weren't in the camp when they were on their mission. At the same time, he thinks that their operation was easier than he thought it would. He tells her to stay alert. She tells them it's time to leave, but just then, the other thieves show up and stop them. "Where do you think you're going?" the leader of the thieves asks. All of a sudden, Sierra and the others are surrounded. Masamune ponders that this mission will not be easy. The man laughs at her and makes fun of the idea that they would be so careless as to let their things be stolen. Things have suddenly gone badly, and Nito realizes that they're in a trap. At the same time, Sierra recognizes the head thief and asks him if he's Oliver Joe, which makes the man shocked. The knight then says that he used to be a knight of Razhausen's royal capital and the leader of a strong group. 2 years ago, though, he killed all of his men, set the city on fire, and then vanished. Oliver tells Sierra that he has now turned his skills to the business of stealing and thanks her for the introduction. But Sierra can't believe that someone with so much skill would steal. Oliver says it doesn't make sense to swear allegiance to a country or a king because he doesn't like being used. She doesn't agree with him and says the king is kind, but Oliver responds with a tough question. Does the king's order mean nothing else? He also adds that all the people he has killed before had eyes like Sierra's, empty and weak. But all of a sudden, he remarks that she is a beautiful woman who would definitely sell well in the black market. So, he doesn't think twice before telling his men to attack and kill everyone. Seeing this, Sierra acts right away and tells Masamune to grab everyone and run. Then she uses a strong spell called Ice Windstorm to kill several men at once. Oliver compliments her performance and says she really is a White King's knight. This makes her wonder how he knew who she was. He tells her that her armor showed who she was, even though she looked too young to be one. At that very moment, a thief walks up to Masamune, who is not defending himself and swings forward to attack. Keith steps in just in time to stop the attack and casts a spell that kills the man who did it. In the background, Masamune is amazed by how powerful an offensive class magician is and makes a note of it. She thanks Keith for acting quickly. At the same time, Oliver is upset that they are easily controlling his men, saying that they are too weak. Right after that, Sierra finally kills the last thief. She hears someone scream for help as the mission comes to a close. Now Oliver has Jack's mom pleading for his kid to be let go because he is being held hostage. Sierra is confused about how Jack was captured. The leader tells her with a sly grin that they left him alone to go back to the village. He tells them they should have gone with him and makes fun of their stupid plan to leave a child alone in enemy territory. Sierra tells the man to let Jack go because she is very angry. Out of anger, Oliver grabs the kid and tells him to shut up when he screams in desperation. Because Jack won't stop screaming, he breaks down and pulls out a knife, stating that he wants to kill the boy. He is about to stab Jack, and Sierra won't be able to stop him in time. At the last second, though, Masamune appears from behind Oliver, grabs the dagger, and stabs the man. He gets a confused look on his face when the attack comes out of nowhere, and then he falls. Keith and Sierra are shocked as they look at Masamune, but Jack is the one who gets their attention. He asks, "When did you get here?" He can't answer the question. He then feels a little uneasy when he sees that everyone is staring at him. He tells them to go back to the village because everyone is worried about them. Keith thinks that his plan is good. On the other hand, Sierra grabs him and scarily asks him what just happened. He acts like he doesn't know what's going on, so the knight tells him that he's supposed to be a healer and nags him about how quickly he moved and stole the knife. She is adamant. "Are you not telling me something?" Sierra tells him to show her his status, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't lose his cool, though, and tells them to go back to the village first. Sierra still doesn't like him, but she lets him off the hook for now and notifies him that he needs to explain himself when they get back. When Masamune is alone with Keith, he breaks the silence by telling him how great he is at what he does. At first, Keith just stares at him blankly. Then, he smirks and tells him that he's nothing compared to him. Masamune now knows he has let himself down and isn't sure if he should have kept his strength a secret. Jack would have died if he had, though. He knows he shouldn't ignore King Shayan's advice, but he thinks the choice he's made now is the right one. People in Tanya village love getting together with their family and friends again. Masamune is enjoying the scene, but out of the corner of his eye, he sees a girl in a hood standing by herself, away from the other people. He walks up to her and asks if she won't be meeting her family, but she doesn't answer. A woman tells him that the girl isn't from their village, which makes him feel better. She says that when they got to the camp, they had already seen her there and didn't know where she came from or how she was caught. Sierra shows up at that very moment and asks if something is wrong. The girl might just be scared right now, she thinks after hearing what's going on. Then Sierra comforts the girl and tells her she will be taken care of. Aside from that, she says that she will get help at the town hall when they get to the capital city tomorrow. Masamune thinks the girl is still feeling uneasy, so he tells her she can come back by herself if she doesn't want to go to the capital. He adds that he can take her home if she needs him to if she doesn't know how. Sierra tells him off for being so direct, but the girl clenches him out of the blue, which surprises the knight and shows that she agrees with his offer. Sierra feels let down when her offer to help is turned down, so she leaves to help other villagers. He sighs and tells the girl that she made him look like a bad guy. The girl replies and says she doesn't like Sierra for the first time. Masamune lets out a shocked scream hearing her talk. Then he asks her why she hasn't said anything yet. She doesn't answer, but instead tells him her name is Totrika, or Toa for short. He is shocked when Toa introduces herself, which makes the girl wonder if he's paying attention. Masamune gets himself together and says hello as well. He's about to tell her real name. He tries to stop himself because he doesn't want to lie to her. He then tells her to call him Nito wherever else. Finally, he asks the strange girl, "How did you get caught anyway?" She doesn't remember much, just that she was taken away. He tells her that they will try to find her home. Meanwhile, at the carriage, William asks Keith about the White Knight, and he informs him about how amazing she is. William thinks it will be a problem for the healer to become an adventurer with his class, but Keith assures him that the boy is a hell of a monster. William finds it interesting. The next morning, Masamune and a sleepy Toa meet William and Sierra with a glare and greet them. They then continue their trip to Rashausen. The knight says out of the blue that she still hasn't heard Masamune's explanation of how he beat Oliver even though he was a healer. While on their way, she says in a stern voice, "I won't stop until you give me a satisfactory explanation." There is no way for him to avoid showing her his status window now that she is so suspicious and interested. They both look at his stats while he tells them that he stole the knife by moving quickly with his Godspeed skill. The knight is now sure, so she says she's sorry that she didn't believe him before. He says it's okay, but deep down, he's very glad that he has learned the mimic's life skill, which lets him make up information on his status screen. At that very moment, William tells him that they have arrived at Rashausen, which makes him very happy. Is it time to part ways in the royal capital? The great merchant says it's time because he needs to bring goods to the castle. He looks forward to seeing them again. After Masamune thanks him, they say goodbye and start their journey. Sierra then suggests going to the guild. Masamune finds out that the guild is also a lively pub full of happy adventurers and their drinks. Sierra calls him to the front desk and tells him to touch an orb to find out his status. He knows right away that he can't stand out, and he hopes that his skill mimics life will work on the device. The receptionist checks to see if he is Nito, a healer, and thankfully lets him sign up. The skill seems to have worked. Now that that's over, Sierra asks Masamune what he plans to do next. He tells Toa that they should go to the town hall to find out more about her hometown, but the girl doesn't want to go. He can tell she doesn't want to do it, so he suggests she sign up as an adventurer. She agrees right away. At that moment, an old, drunk man puts his arm around Masamune and jokes that he'll join them on their adventure with his pretty woman. Since Masamune has dealt with this before, he tells the man that they are his friends. The angry old man tells him to leave his friends behind, and then he makes fun of the boy for being a healer who thinks it's easy to be an adventurer. He adds, "You kids should go home to your mom." Sierra finally steps in and tells the man he's being rude. But the drunk can't be stopped. He informs her it will be fun to hang out with him, and she says yes. All of a sudden, a woman storms into the guild and calls out for Sierra. Annette is the woman, and she kneels down in front of Sierra to wish her a safe return home. Masamune is shocked by how Annette is acting, and she asks Sierra who he is. The knight introduces Masamune and Toa and how she met them on her journey. After thanking them for taking care of Sierra, Annette asks her if they should go back to the castle. The drunk man gets angry and grabs Sierra, telling her she's wrong for ignoring him. Putting the man in an armlock right away while yelling at him for his behavior turns out to be a fatal mistake. After some time, Sierra says goodbye to Toa and Masamune. She tells them to go to the Ecarlat house and offers help if they have any problems. He tells her not to worry and says yes. Now that there are only two of them left in their group, they both walk around the royal capital, but they don't have any money to do anything. A shopkeeper walks up to them out of the blue and tells Masamune that his clothes are strange. Soon after, Sharon, the woman, invites them into her shop, where they tell her their story about not having any money. She is shocked by how bad things are for them, so she offers to trade the duo's clothes for new ones. Masamune agrees to her offer after she makes her a deal. She then asks about his class while getting their new clothes ready. He tells the woman that he's a healer, which makes her very happy. After some time, she gives Masamune a robe and a pouch for herbs. He asks the shopkeeper why he needs to use herbs. The shopkeeper says that healers bring as many healing items as possible because their magic isn't very strong. The woman then asks Toa what class she's in, and the shy girl says she's a paladin. The shopkeeper is shocked and can't believe it until she sees Toa's status window. Then she knows for sure that she is a rare paladin. She talks about how this is a special class that can use magic and swordsmanship, which is a demon trait. As soon as Masamune hears the word demons, he remembers King Greyberg talking about them. He then asks Sharon about the strange race. She is shocked by how little he knows, but she tells him that demons live beyond the great forest and are born with a lot of magical power. A short time later, they are done changing into their new clothes, which look stunning on them. For Toa's birthday, the lady gives him a broadsword for free, and to show her appreciation, she also gives Masamune a bag of money. She gives him her last piece of advice and tells him to be careful around people who are looking for demons, especially Toa. She says if you're a man, make sure to protect her. She knows she can trust him, so he tells her. She finally tells them her name with a smile. After that, she says goodbye and tells them to come back to her store if they need anything. Later, they stop at a city plaza for some cool drinks before continuing their trip. When he looks at Toa, he thinks about how he met someone from the demon race by accident. Masamune is interested in her because of a strange skill on her status window, the Demon's Eye of Truth. She is higher level than other adventurers, but this skill is different.
This tale revolves around Hirasawa Kazuki, an ordinary Japanese university student with no distinctive qualities. Suddenly, he receives a notice detailing what awaits him 8 years later, a fate that may lead to his destruction. With a mix of shock and confusion, he gazes at his reflection in the mirror, pondering why he finds himself in this situation. He recalls from earlier when it took him a moment to realize what's happening. A woman is holding him and a man is screaming, reaching for a weapon, and on the floor is a kneeling maid awaiting execution, pleading for his forgiveness. The man shouts at her to cease the nonsense, calling her an inferior maid. He is ready to swing the blade while the helpless maid is pleading for mercy. Wondering if this could be some sort of game event, Hirasawa reflects on his obsession with the console game Brave Hearts. It's a stereotypical fantasy RPG where the protagonist, Liner, thwarts a scheme to destroy the world. Despite the 2D battle screen, it's packed with actions like special magic or skills, providing an exhilarating battle system that never gets old. While the main storyline is linear, the allure lies in hidden dungeons, extra events, beautiful skills, and character dialogues. Hirasawa has lost count of how many times he's played it, finding himself addicted to the game. Having played the game to the point of practically memorizing all the event lines, there's no way he could be mistaken. As he observes the family tree in the game, including the head of the Stokes family, Hayden, his wife Jessica, and his servant Clara, he's shocked to witness these characters moving before him. Questions flood his mind. Was this reality from the beginning? Where exactly is he, and what actions led him to this point? The sudden immersion into these events is incredibly worrisome for him. As he grapples with the unfolding situation, flashbacks of the main events from the game start to haunt him. In this scenario, the mother of the main heroine faces execution by the eldest son of the Stokes family, Harold. Kazuki contemplates the whereabouts of Harold, confident that in this scene, he should be embraced by his worried mother. It's too troublesome for him to be in such a dire situation. However, reality presents a stark contrast as the woman tightly holds onto him. He is shockingly noticing his hands and his appearance, unable to grapple the situation. While the woman is reassuring him that everything is alright and there's no need to worry any longer. He still can't get a hold of the situation. Meanwhile, the father stands prepared to end the maid's life. Sword raised high, he roars, dismissing any significance in listening to her pleas for mercy, determined to purge her depraved existence himself. As she faces imminent execution, her thoughts are solely consumed by Colette. Hirasawa takes a step forward, urging the father to halt. To his surprise, his body seems to move on its own, demanding permission to carry out the maid's execution personally. In response, the father questions his intentions. Rather than pleading for the maid's life, Kazuki shocks the parents by expressing his plan to use her as a training dummy, asking them to vacate the room. The father, intrigued by the idea, orders the maid to be thrown into the dungeon. Growling once more, he denounces her as a filthy breed, emphasizing that despite showing mercy by employing her, she failed to perform her duties adequately. However, reality presents a stark contrast as the woman tightly holds onto him. He is shockingly noticing his hands and his appearance, unable to grapple the situation. While the woman is reassuring him that everything is alright and there's no need to worry any longer. He still can't get a hold of the situation. Meanwhile, the father stands prepared to end the maid's life. Sword raised high, he roars, dismissing any significance in listening to her pleas for mercy, determined to purge her depraved existence himself. As she faces imminent execution, her thoughts are solely consumed by Colette.
The mother shares the sentiment, considering the maid an inferior species and suggesting she could be useful for Harold's magic experiments. It's at this moment that Hirasawa Kazuki, the university student, realizes something unsettling. He's much younger than he was in the original story. Despite the age difference, there's no doubt whose body he now inhabits. It's the body of the most hated character in Braveheart, Harold Stokes, known for his heinous and arrogant nature. In the original storyline, Harold was destined to meet his demise at the hands of Justice, the final boss. Confusion and bewilderment grip Kazuki as he grapples with the realization of transforming into Harold. He questions whether this is the work of a professional or if he's merely caught in the midst of a hyper-realistic dream. Being just an ordinary university student, finding himself in such a bizarre situation is incredibly strange for him. Suddenly, there's a knock on his door, prompting him to casually invite the person in. It strikes him as odd because in his normal state, he wouldn't typically respond in such a way. The expression seemed to come out automatically. A man in a suit enters and stands there respectfully, introducing himself as Norman. This triggers Kazuki's contemplation about Norman, who, among all the characters in Bravehearts, is renowned for his sensibility. He's earned the nickname of the Conscience of Stokes. Even in events involving the Stokes family that garner high hate points, Norman stands out as the only saint-like character. But he is just a butler and he does not have any stroke blood in him. Norman is called in by Harold. When questioned about the purpose of his visit, he hesitates before stating that he has something to consult with Harold. Observing him, Harold, with a forced smiley face, assures him that it's nothing significant and that he's perfectly fine. However, Norman, perceptive to Harold's unsettling expressions, expresses concern once again, inquiring if everything is truly well with him. Grimly, Harold reassures Norman that he is indeed fine. Hirasawa observes the harsh and dismissive tone in Harold's voice, which effectively nullifies any concern Norman-san attempts to express. It becomes evident that whatever he intends to convey is being filtered through Harold's way of speaking. Despite the grim atmosphere, Norman tries to be brief, urging Harold to lessen the punishment imposed on Clara. This revelation surprises Kazuki, making him realize that now the woman named Clara is under Harold's control. Kazuki reflects on how his mouth automatically utters those lines, vibrating on its own, even though he doesn't harbor the slightest intention behind those words. It dawns on him that, amidst the intense shock of transforming into Harold, he forgot his inherent responsibility to do everything in his power to save Clara. The main heroine in the game is Colette, Clara's daughter. In the game's narrative, Clara meets her demise through Harold's magic, leading to Colette's expulsion from the Stokes family due to the absence of any remaining relatives. And the protagonist Liner and his family protect her at the village she eventually arrives in. Kazuki contemplates the potential consequences of rescuing Clara, realizing that it would significantly deviate from the original story where he encounters Liner. If he possesses the power to alter history, he could potentially become allies with Liner, but he fears that ultimately, his future may lead to pure darkness. On the other hand, without such power, he could manipulate Harold's actions to avoid worsening his impression on others. However, his primary goal remains steering clear of death flags at all costs, and avoiding unfavorable actions might result in a substantial deviation from the storyline. Kazuki acknowledges the possibility of encountering unforeseen developments that don't exist in the original story, potentially leading to his demise. Unable to predict the future, he contemplates a strategy where, instead of changing general scenarios, he guides the conclusion in an acceptable direction. As he attempts to address Clara and inquire if she is the earlier servant, his mouth takes on a stern expression, involuntarily suggesting that if Clara were that servant. Kazuki wrestles with his true desire to save her, yet his mouth, against his intentions, growls at Norman, urging him to take action and save the maid in question. Frustrated, Kazuki sighs, realizing that this approach may not work, and his hated points might escalate. Harold roars once more, demanding Norman to take action first if he intends to protect her, with a promise to listen to him afterward. Stuttering, he attempts to say something, but Harold cuts him off, urging him to hurry and leave. As Norman walks toward the door, thanking them and excusing himself, Kazuki tiredly sits on his bed, wearing a grave expression. Lying down, he contemplates if he was too hasty in his decisions. He not only struggles with controlling his voice, but also finds it challenging to avoid worsening his overall impression. He contemplates the idea of giving in, wondering if dying in this world might offer a chance to return to his own. However, standing outside a colossal building, which happens to be the dungeon, Harold inquires about the number of people imprisoned. His guard informs him of the possibility of only one prisoner at the moment. Harold instructs the guard to stay outside and to keep watch, while he proceeds to enter the dungeon through the main door. Inside, he encounters a person leisurely lying on a chair in front of a table. Shockingly, the person falls from the chair, sending the table flying, upon seeing Harold. Unfazed, Harold orders the guard to stay put, expressing his intention to talk to the prisoner alone. The guy, a mix of surprised and confused, complies with Harold's request, dumbfoundedly watching as he walks down the stairs. Peeking from the end of the corridor, Harold observes numerous prison rooms. In one of them, he spots Clara and approaches her. Clara, shivering with fear, is astonished to see him and utters his name in bewilderment. With a tremulous voice, she questions if it is already that time. He reassures her that it can be if she desires, but his current visit is for another matter. He instructs her to answer his question truthfully. He inquires about the members of her family, and Clara reveals that she has only one daughter. Asking for the daughter's name, Harold learns it's Colette. He then delves into what happened to the rest of her kin, and she remorsefully admits that she initially eloped with her husband, leading to estrangement from her family. She reveals that her husband passed away 3 years ago due to an illness. Kazuki reflects on this information, understanding why Colette had no other relatives besides her mother. He proceeds to inquire about her daughter's age, learning that Colette is 9 years old. The next question revolves around her experience with magic and martial arts, to which she admits Colette hasn't delved into such activities. Kazuki considers this a positive outcome, aligning with his knowledge from the original story. Content with the information he now possesses, including details he wasn't aware of in this scene, Kazuki finalizes his plans. Walking away from Clara, he declares that the conversation is over and that he will see her again. She pleads with Harold to wait, expressing her concern that if she dies, her daughter will be left without a single relative. She implores him to take care of Colette after her inevitable demise, tears welling up in her eyes. With a heavy heart, she begs once more. However, as Harold walks away, he growls about the unsightliness of both her appearance and her foolishness for being seized by a meaningless fear. Taken aback, Clara asks the meaning behind his harsh words, but Harold continues walking, leaving the long corridor empty once again. And passed away 3 years ago due to an illness. Kazuki reflects on this information, understanding why Colette had no other relatives besides her mother. He proceeds to inquire about her daughter's age, learning that Colette is 9 years old. The next question revolves around her experience with magic and martial arts, to which she admits Colette hasn't delved into such activities. Kazuki considers this a positive outcome, aligning with his knowledge from the original story. Content with the information he now possesses, including details he wasn't aware of in this scene, Kazuki finalizes his plans. Walking away from Clara, he declares that the conversation is over and that he will see her again. She pleads with Harold to wait, expressing her concern that if she dies, her daughter will be left without a single relative. She implores him to take care of Colette after her inevitable demise, tears welling up in her eyes. With a heavy heart, she begs once more. However, as Harold walks away, he growls about the unsightliness of both her appearance and her foolishness for being seized by a meaningless fear. Taken aback, Clara asks the meaning behind his harsh words, but Harold continues walking, leaving the long corridor empty once again. And passed away 3 years ago due to an illness. Kazuki reflects on this information, understanding why Colette had no other relatives besides her mother. He proceeds to inquire about her daughter's age, learning that Colette is 9 years old. The next question revolves around her experience with magic and martial arts, to which she admits Colette hasn't delved into such activities. Kazuki considers this a positive outcome, aligning with his knowledge from the original story. Content with the information he now possesses, including details he wasn't aware of in this scene, Kazuki finalizes his plans. Walking away from Clara, he declares that the conversation is over and that he will see her again. She pleads with Harold to wait, expressing her concern that if she dies, her daughter will be left without a single relative. She implores him to take care of Colette after her inevitable demise, tears welling up in her eyes. With a heavy heart, she begs once more. However, as Harold walks away, he growls about the unsightliness of both her appearance and her foolishness for being seized by a meaningless fear. Taken aback, Clara asks the meaning behind his harsh words, but
concerning the monster in question, it is of level 32. To the extent that Masamune is concerned, he is counting on Toa to bring Sierra some assistance. She dashes forward and uses her ice great sword. Toa inquires as to whether or not the monster is resistant to the use of this weapon. The monster, on the other hand, is difficult to defeat. Toa uses her magic, and it serves no purpose in dealing with it. Sierra explains to them that these monsters have the ability to control magical particles by using their antlers as a means of communication. The destruction of the antlers is the first thing that Masamune recommends for the monster. He warns them about what appears to be a light coming from the direction of the forest where the monster is. Sierra is taken aback by as she witnesses Toa utilizing 2 magic circles, and despite their best efforts, they are unable to result in any kind of damage to the monster. Masamune thinks that it's not about the use of force. He thinks that its attacks will be of a magical nature and if it is able to exert control over any magic particles that it encounters. When the monster casted a beam of light, some of light disappeared. Sierra suggests aiming for that opening. She also asks him to use her as a decoy. He responds that it is fine, and that he will finish in a short amount of time. Sierra's suggestion is well received. Through the use of his ability Soul Break, he applies a tremendous amount of force to the monster's antlers, which causes them to shatter. Upon learning this, the young ladies are taken aback. The monster's antlers have been broken as a consequence of Masamune actions, and as a result, it will no longer be able to defend itself against the attacks that they make. He informs Sierra that he wants to attempt something with the monster, so he requests to handle it himself. Masamune's face undergoes a transformation, with half of it cloaked in a dark shadow accompanied by glowing eyes. He requests Sierra to keep the events she witnessed today a secret. Elsewhere, a man informs the leader about the clone with white particles witnessed in the forest. He tells him that it has been reported by a number of daring travelers that they have witnessed a massive clone that was surrounded by light particles. As a result of their injuries, the adventurers are currently being transported to the hospital in order to receive adequate medical attention. To the best of their knowledge, there are still 3 adventurers who are engaged in combat with it at this very moment. Among the women, one of them is holding a rapier in her hand, in addition to having silver hair. Following his recognition of Sierra, the leader of the White Knights, Reinhard Rickman, requests the informer to communicate it to Raid and Hilda that Sierra is currently engaged in combat with a Nukalane. 2 days ago, when everyone else in the village had gone to sleep with their families, Masamune went to check on Oliver's status. The Fire Shield skill, the Fire Booster skill, and the Magic Speed of Fire ability were all possessed by Oliver, who was a user of fire magic. Oliver also possessed the ability to use fire magic. He ponders that he will not be able to make use of elemental magic even if he is successful in acquiring it. This is because he will not be able to use it. Suddenly, he is inundated with a message that conveyed information about a quest. The message was in the form of an announcement. During a sizable portion of the entirety of the message, the contents were devoted to Oliver's wife, Anna. It was because of her that he was elevated to the position of leader, and he became a knight exclusively for her. Everything that happened was due to her. Following his return from the conflict, he discovered that his wife, who was a thief, had been murdered while she was stealing. He was shocked to learn this news. It came as a complete surprise to him. During the time that Oliver was descending further and further into a state of hopelessness, his fellow soldiers made fun of him. Following the consideration of this message, it appears that it is connected to King's assassination. This is the conclusion that can be drawn. He acquires magic hellfire, but he does not recognize the spell. After engaging in some self-reflection, Masamune comes to the realization that for him to be able to make use of the spell if he revere it, he must first take it in the opposite direction. This ability allows him to activate Mischievous Reversal by utilizing the god of revenge mischief, which is analogous to the way that water is the opposite of fire. As a result of the rewriting process, the phrase Magic Hellfire is now referred to as Goddess Bloody Tears. Back to present, he has a peculiar feeling, as if he is not in his typical self as he normally would be. This is something that he cannot explain. Standing in the forest, there is shadow on his shoulder, and as he makes use of his recently acquired ability, which is known as Goddess Bloody Tears, he expresses his thoughts and feelings through tears that drips from the shadow's eyes. As soon as the magical tears drops on the monster, it vanishes in a short amount of time. This happens immediately after using his skill. According to the boy, it has come to an end, and the peculiar sensation that he had been experiencing up until this point is no longer present. It is also his assertion that the problem has been solved. They become aware that someone is approaching. Masamune suggests running to avoid being discovered. He tells Sierra that he showed it to her because he trusts her. He asks her to manage the remaining aspects of the situation. Over the course of her time here, Sierra has acquired a comprehensive understanding of everything that took place in this location. She is left to handle the situation on her own as a result of the boy's confidence in her ability to handle it without any assistance from him. It is with the following statement that they depart. Let's meet again in the capital, Sierra Mondal, and Toa adds that she will tell the location to the innkeeper. After they leave, Sierra wonders who Masamune is. The leader of the knights arrives at the location, and is accompanied by the white knights Raid Black and Hilda, according to the stories that were told. They are shocked and curious about what happened when they discover the remains of the monster. In addition, they are interested in learning the specifics of what occurred. According to the information, there were supposed to be 2 more adventurers present at this location. However, they are not currently present anywhere in the vicinity. Either of them can be found. Sierra is questioned about whether or not she was successful in defeating the monster, while the leader inquires about what took place. As Sierra was one of the 3 adventurers who were supposed to be present at the battle, as stated by the information, Sierra's involvement in the conflict is recognized and acknowledged. On the other hand, the other 2 are nowhere to be found, and the fact that Sierra was able to defeat the monster on her own is a mystery to the leader. She seemed to be the only one who was successful in spite of the competition. Even though she suggests that the Kalain were the ones responsible for the disappearance of the exploration group, she does not provide a response to Raid's inquiry. The leader makes the decision to get in touch with the office of the knight in order to perform the task of gathering information. Knight Daniel approaches the leader in the vicinity of the entrance to the king's chamber, and makes an effort to inquire about the various circumstances that are currently taking place. He does this in an effort to provide more information. The leader suggests Daniel to go and inquire about the matter with Sierra herself because he is experiencing uncertainty regarding the matter. This recommendation is made in light of the fact that Daniel is experiencing those uncertainties. In the meantime, Topsy's team is in possession of the body of the monster, and Daniel is informed by him that they should wait for the results of the investigation before making any decisions. The king makes the decision to defer to the leader, despite the fact that Daniel has a sneaking suspicion that something fishy is going on. If the 2 adventurers were successful in eliminating the Nut Kalain, then they are not typical people and that they could be just as powerful as them, or even more powerful than them. It is emphasized by the leader that in the event that they pose any kind of threat to the nation, the individual who is protecting them will also be prepared to face the consequences of their actions. This is because he is aware that they could potentially cause harm to the nation. Daniel is in need of information regarding whether or not they are adversaries, allies, or both. The information is essential for him to be aware of. Toa and Masamune are currently observing everything that is taking place in the town while they are seated in the middle of the town. When Toa takes into consideration the fact that he is a healer, he shouldn't be able to use elemental magic. Taking into consideration the fact that he was able to easily break the monster's horns with his bare hands, he decides to put an end to this magic from this point forward. Despite this, she reassures him that it is not a problem, and that she will do everything in her power to protect him in the event that he decides to not use his abilities regardless of the consequences. To put it another way, she is going to do everything she can to safeguard him. After that, he reveals that he had always wanted to inquire as to the reason why she had trusted him after they had first met. The fact that he had always wanted to inquire about it is something that he mentions. Sierra comes across them and causes them to be interrupted, which prevents them from continuing their conversation until she leaves. They should avoid drawing any attention to themselves or the statements that they make, as this is the recommendation that she has made. She reassures them that they were successful in capturing the monster, despite the fact that she has not disclosed any information regarding the White Knights. She has not disclosed any information either. It is not possible for her to provide a guarantee that this is the case, however. All of their conversations are being overheard by Raid, who then inquires as to who possesses the power to transform Kalain into minced meat for such a powerful purpose. What is the identity of the person who took his prey?